He occupied that position in 1999 to 2003. Right, Honorable, it's our pleasure to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And we are also having guests from our Lagos Network Center. Blessing.
Yes, we have in our Lagos studio. Today we're being joined by Senator Mike Ajebo. And it's our pleasure to welcome you to the program this morning, Senator Ajebo.
Thank you. Good morning.
Also in the Lagos studio, we'd like to welcome back to the studio. Yes, he was with us sometimes last week, and we believe getting him up this morning is not too much of a problem. But Senator Olorun Nimbe Mamora, it's our pleasure to welcome you back to the program. Good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, gentlemen, this is a subject matter. We're taking it, as it were, from the crisis end. That namely, we have a recurrent crisis in the leadership of the National Assembly. There was some stability in the Senate, as our background report indicated, but in recent weeks, of course, we've all been witnesses to what has been going on and the projections as to the potential consequences. But before discussing the crisis end of it, that's to say the instability or the apparent instability in the leadership of the National Assembly, perhaps to be useful for the benefit of our viewers to understand the powers and privileges of the leadership of the National Assembly, say that the Senate President or the Speaker of the House. And then we'll begin that question with the former Speaker of the House of Representatives. It said that, the Speaker or the Senate President is first amongst equals, usually framed as, primus inter pares. But it would appear that once he or she gets into that seat, it becomes a different ballgame, and everybody is seeking to pull him or her down. So what are the powers of the leader of, that's the Speaker now, of the House or the President of the Senate, and what are the privileges?
Well, first of all, let me admit that the Speaker is, of course, the head of the House of Representatives. And ultimately, the buck, stops at his desk. And whenever you have such scenarios, you find out that some members become against you, some members become for you. That is natural whenever there is any power situation. And it must be understood also that ultimately the Speaker determines who becomes what in the House of Representatives. And that also has its own perils. Perils because when you distribute, you live in the wake of that distribution. Members that become aggrieved because in their own considered opinion, they are being left in the lurch. And of course, nobody wants to be left in the lurch. It is a natural inclination of men to want to be relevant. So everybody wants to be relevant. And when you have particularly few positions to distribute, then definitely animosities are created. And it now becomes the challenge for the Speaker to manage these animosities. So the challenges of any leader in the House remains to manage animosities. That is very important.
All right, Honorable, thank you very much. We'll come back to you again, but let's also get the views of our guests at the Lagos Network Center. Senator Mamora, my colleague Blessing has already welcomed you. Of course, we had you last week. You also had a benefit of being the Speaker of the Lagos House of Assembly, although I would imagine that in terms of ranking, Senator Mike Ajebo will be your senior. He was in the Senate before you. So let's get the views of Senator Mike Ajebo before we come to you. Senator Mike Ajebo, in your opinion, Well, I mean, how do you conceive of the powers and privileges of whoever is the pointsman in terms of being the Senate president?
As far as I'm concerned, there's a disconnect somewhere, because the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President of the Senate are first among equals. And that is where I should help. But the problem emanates from the fact that there is no discipline in the political system. The institution of the National Assembly was created by the Constitution as one of the 3 organs of government. Actually, it's the first by Section 4 of the Constitution. And before you are elected into any of the houses, you must belong to a political party. And that political party has a manifesto. Therefore, when you go to the National Assembly, you are supposed to promote the manifesto of the political parties that, based on the platform which you got there. But unfortunately, that system broke down in 1999, when the presidency was more interested in a different candidate from the candidate that was brought up by the party. The presidency encouraged the other 2 political parties to support its candidate against the majority party, which was the PDP. And unfortunately, the presidency was also controlled by PDP. So when late Senator Warren became the Senate president, against the wishes of the majority of PDP members in the Senate, there was a breakdown in party discipline in the Senate. So this issue now became reward for those people that helped him get the post of the Senate president. The focus was no longer on promoting party programs, but on reward, which more or less bears out what Right Honorable Naba did indicate, that it became the issue of managing opposing interests in the House or in the Senate. It should not be that way. It should be promotion of a party manifesto. And it doesn't matter who the party chooses to be the leader in the Senate or in the House. The majority is supposed to promote the party manifesto. So once that broke down, then the issue became perquisites, who becomes the chairman of what, and then there's a complete breakdown in the system. So as far as I'm concerned, the majority party in the Senate and the House today are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So likewise, during our own tenure, instead of promoting the ideologies and the manifestos of the party that got us there, we were busy looking at different things. I was very upset when I heard that the Senate had a retreat and they came up with the ideas of what they are going to do for Nigerians, the type of laws they are going to pass, instead of promoting their party manifestos. I think that's my own take on the issue.
Okay, Senator Mamura, I would like to seek your own views based on the question that's raised by Kingsley, and alongside to see why we still have, after 16, 17 years of return to democratic practice, the legislature appears to be the least appreciated, least practiced, and kind of least institutionalized.
Well, thank you very much. I think you have put it in the right perspective. The legislature remains the least understood, is misunderstood, is misrepresented, and of course misconstrued. And it's a factor of our political evolution where we had the military on stage for so long. So it will appear that the generality of Nigerians seemed not to have, imbibed what the legislature, really stands for in terms of the spirit and the functions and roles. But back to the question earlier, asked, I think that yes, the presiding officer, whether at the state level or at the federal level, always had some powers, and privileges. Yes, the presiding officer is first among equals, but the reality is that he has been elevated, to a point where he or she has direct access to Mr. President, has direct access to so many things, has privileged information to work with. And of course, like my brother and friend, Honorable Gali Naaba, the former speaker, did say, is in a position to distribute positions, within the legislature. And of course, the legislature itself is a political institution. So you have interests. As we say, politics about interests. Who gets what, how, where, and when. So it's the same thing that happens in the legislature. So people jostle for positions because of the interests they intend to protect. So naturally, this is a source of, a potential source of instability, because if some people think that they are not getting what they think they deserve or they desire, then potentially you have a problem. So the privileges, the rights, the powers are there for the presiding officer, but these privileges, these powers, this influence must be managed very, very carefully, bringing on board equity, justice, and of course, fairness. And I think that's the way these privileges and powers must be managed within the ambit of the legislature.
All right, distinguished Senator Mamora, thank you very much. We will come back to you in the course of the conversation. But let's return to Right Honorable Gali now. But again, we just try to set up the framework for the foundation for the greater issue of a recurring crisis in the leadership of the National Assembly. Let's take some historical view of things. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was the first president of Nigeria Senate. And then you had Nwafo Orizu. I mean, we knew the role he played when you had a coup in 1966. Come to the Second Republic from 79 to 83. I mean, if you mentioned who was the speaker, everybody knew it was Edwin Umelzuke. If he was the president, it was Joe Wyers. And then suddenly, you come to the Fourth Republic from 1999, and I'm sure if you were to set a current affairs quiz for pupils, it will be tough, what exactly has changed in the Fourth Republic? Senator Ajigbe was speaking to that, but why did we appear to have consistency in the First, Second Republics, and to some extent in the Third Republic, where you had diarchy? And all of a sudden, from 1999, it would appear to be absolute chaos.
To be candid with you, the values, political values subsisting over those years you mentioned, became lost. When we came in 1999, and I want to buttress what my brother, Senator Ajebo, had said. When we came, the National Assembly was supposed to be proclaimed. The proclamation was supposed to take place on the 3rd of June. And suddenly, we had stories which later became a reality, that the president wanted a Senate president other than the person that majority of the senators wanted to elect to become the Senate president. And therefore, the president whimsically shifted the proclamation by another 3 days. That is why today, all proclamations take place on the 6th, not on the 3rd. And because of that, because he wanted to do that, he wasted 3 days of our time, and through measures that we consider to be corrupt, instigated senators from the ruling party, the PDP, and the other parties, the APP and AD, and installed or caused to be elected somebody who was not the preference of the senators. And when we started, we thought that the man helped by the president to become the Senate president was not protecting the interest of the institution. Therefore, we decided that he must go. And we cooperated with the Senate and devised means within which we thought we could drive him out of the leadership of the Senate. And we did a lot of things. And eventually, we had him impeached. And therefore, because what the president did set the tone for the legislature became unstable. Instead of facing our responsibilities as spelled out by Senator Ajegbu, we became on the defensive. And in that situation, it is very, very easy for a new set of values to crop in to the legislature. That was what happened. And because the president wanted a situation whereby he had both in the Senate and the House, you know, a leadership that would be amenable to him. Both the Senate and the House became relatively unstable. Whereas, of course, in the Senate, he succeeded in having Chuba Okadibo removed, of course, with the active collaboration with some of the senators. In the House, it did not succeed, you know, for reasons peculiar to both houses. But that was the reason the legislature has consistently become, you know, unstable in that within those 4 years. The desire of the executive to have leadership amenable to it.
All right. Right, Honorable, we'll be back to you to take on some other areas as we move on in the discussion. We're going back to Lagos, where we still have our two other senators in the studio right there in the Lagos place. Now, Senator Ajegbu, let's take a look. Yes, already you started off talking about some of the areas that could have kick-started this crisis. But of course, like Kingsley raised earlier, the other republics, that's before the Fourth Republic, of course, there were some appreciable level of stability, if we could use that word. But of recent, it's as if it's 1 week or 1 day, one trouble of late in the National Assembly, particularly of what we've had in the recent times. Well, for some, they are also pointing the fact that the unnecessary medicinalness of the other arms of government, especially the executive, it's a basis for some of this crisis in the legislature. But what's your take? Those are some of the comments out there.
There are three basic issues that cause problem between the executive and the legislature. The first actually started from the legislature when it was disorganized at the beginning of this Fourth Republic. The focus now became what people can get out of it. I happened to have been the chairman of judiciary at that point in time. And I gave an interpretation about an expenditure to the House, you know, which was not taken very well by some members. I said that in the Senate, we are just to make laws. We are not supposed to control funds. That's the job of the executive under Section 5 of the Constitution. It was strongly resisted within the Senate itself that the presiding officer should control funds. I said, no, I disagree with them. So that is one source of the problem. The second source of problem is interpretation of Sections 80 and 81 of the Constitution, issue of appropriation. The Constitution is very clear At the beginning of each year, the president is supposed to lay before the National Assembly the projected revenues and expenditure. And then the National Assembly is supposed to pass it into law. When I was there, we must realize something, that the president we had then, though he was well-meaning, is of military background, so they thrive in confrontation. So the issue now became, look, I sent you some document, you should get it back to me the way I sent it to you. And we said, no, what's the essence of sending it to us? It's for us to look into it. Another problem became what they call environment. The National Assembly makes the appropriation bill and decides the headings of the, of the various expenditure. Then the executive on their own will move the money to other things. We said this is unconstitutional. But one day, luckily enough, when I made so much noise about this issue, there was a meeting where I was as the chairman of judiciary. Of course, I was led by the Senate president and the deputy. And then Mr. President, then Chief Olusegun Obasanjo was there and the vice president. And we realized that what had been happening is that they've been relying on 1962 Finance Act to do what they were doing, which act has been overruled by the Constitution. By the present Constitution we have, if you want to do environment, you have to go back to the National Assembly. But by that act, because it was a parliamentary system, you do the environment, then you go and report to the parliament the following parliamentary day. So this was another source of problem. Then the third one was the issue of constituency projects. Nigerians have never understood the constituency projects. Members of the National Assembly are from various areas, and they believe that their areas need certain things. So it was agreed that in a budget, they should vote money for those projects. But that does not mean that they're going to control the money. The funds will still be controlled by the executive. Till today, Nigerians think that senators and members of the House pocket the money. No. They vote for it, put it into the Appropriation Act, then it will be implemented by the executive. And during my tenure, most of the sub-projects were not even implemented because the executive did not release the money. And we felt very bad about it. And this was one of the reasons why, at that point in time, the then president was to have been impeached. So these are some of the issues that cause problems. Then back to the instability in the Senate. Because of the fact that people look at it that they are going to control funds, they are going to influence the use of funds, that in its own brings instability. So people fight to control these funds. They think that they are governors, whatever it is, that control funds. That is a basic problem. Probably,
right.
Senator.
All right, Senator Mike Ajebo, if you can hear us. Senator Mike Ajebo, looks like I couldn't hear you clearly, but I hope, blessing, it looks like we lost the audio to our Lagos Network Center. We'll wait for our engineers to advise us either whether it's been reestablished, but otherwise, before we get back to Lagos again, let's welcome another guest. Of course, it's a familiar face on the program. Dr. Kabir Mato is of the Department of Political Science at the University of Abuja. He's right here with us in the Abuja studios. Dr. Mato, thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, let's just take the opportunity of, launching you into the conversation. Of course, you've had the benefit of listening to the contributions of the other guests. We're discussing the recurring leadership crisis, as it were, and the most, frequent instability in the National Assembly and a lack of focus on its core legislative duties, as the guests have already indicated. A number of factors have been ticked off. We also attempted, a comparative analysis, what went on in the First and Second Republics in particular, and what we have seen since 1999. You've, of course, been a participant observer in all of this. What, in your opinion, is playing out in the National Assembly in terms of the leadership crisis and the constitutive factors?
Well, thank you very much. I think there are a lot of factors that are responsible for that. A lot of them, of course, are historical. They keep recurring. One of the major issues, of course, has to do with what Senator Ajabo spoke about, the changing tune of the legislature, desirous of control of funds. But I really don't think if that's really a fundamental issue. Historically speaking, the legislature globally is known to exhibit some kind of one parliamentary exuberance or the other. What's different here is, that we often have this instability at the level of leadership. But remember that members of the National Assembly or the legislature all over elect their leaders, and these leaders are often referred to as first among equals. In the Nigerian scenario, the decadence, I think, took a historical perspective in the sense that yes, in the First Republic, in the Second Republic, you had relative stability in comparison to what we have, in contemporary order. And it has to do basically with the fact that, one, the institutional political party itself has gradually waned. It's been denudated. Maybe the character of leadership that emerged on the executive arm of government in 1999 did not understand the logistics of democracy and the parliament as the pillar of democracy, and therefore felt that any inquiry that the parliament made was more or less a challenge on the executive powers of those who are elected directly as president and vice president, or governors and deputy governors. Now, that continued to the extent that the meddlesomeness that the panelists have been talking about became so intense to the extent that whoever emerged as the Speaker of the House, whether in the state or at the center, the Senate President would have to be determined by who is the President. And I think, again, the crisis that we are facing today is a culmination of the fear on the part of the current executive to run away from that invariably led the nation into this unfortunate scenario, especially in the Senate. The President said when he was elected that he was not interested in who became Senate President, and the only reason he gave was that, given what happened in 16 years, it was enough lesson for any executive to learn that the legislature should be allowed to go, on its own. But then, unfortunately, again, certain powerful political forces within, the party arrangement, within the government arrangement, felt that it was not possible and therefore had their own candidates. And when their candidates could not, emerge at the end of the day, it became very, very problematic. The House of Representatives, as far as I'm concerned, is often a hotbed of controversy because it's comprised of very young, vibrant, and sometimes you can see, politically overzealous young people who get there on the basis of the strength of the population of their constituencies. And so, they are vibrant. And at any time, they try to create one crisis or the other. But I think the major issue as we face it today is that it has to do basically with economics. Economics in the sense that who gets what, when, and how. Those who lose out of the selection of into what they call juicy committees, of course, will continue to get aggrieved. And in the current instance, the problem in the House of Representatives was brewed basically because the Speaker decided to remove his the chairman of his appropriation committee. So you can see the economic undertone there. What we will assume, therefore, is that if the Speaker had not touched the former chairman of the appropriation committee, then there would have been peace in the House. So the leadership of the legislature, historically speaking, have faced tremendous challenges over time, as a result of several factors. If the political party, like I did say in the beginning, was strong enough, to have its members to be the rallying point that will dictate or determine or, direct its members or members elected under its platform into certain specific political actions, then of course we wouldn't have the crisis that we are having today. But unfortunately, from 1999 to date, yes, we can appreciate the fact that in 1999, the soldiers quickly rushed the transition program, and so the process of formation of political party itself was hybrid, was replayed with a lot of issues. People came that didn't believe in the same political ideology and so on and so forth, and then conglomerated to form the various political parties. And then, of course, we elected a former military general who was head of state previously, who never had any challenge in the Supreme Military Council, to come and listen to small boys who he said were not born when he was head of state, asking him very sensitive questions about, the way he ran the nation finances, and it really angered President Obasanjo. And my view is that that was the beginning of it. And the tragedy is that we don't seem to be learning from the mistakes of the past. But I'm happy, like I always say, that the nation's drive to democracy, if for nothing, painfully, is transiting from some very ugly scenarios to a perhaps more, pleasurable circumstances. But I believe that the legislature will continue to face, daunting tasks and challenges in the times ahead.
All right, Dr. Kabir Batu, thank you very much there for your contribution. Let's return to our Lagos Network Center. Senator Mamora, distinguished Senator Mamora, let's get your own take on all of this. A number of factors have been identified. The historical perspective has also been taken, and what the causative issues are in the conflict have also been touched on. Let's get your own take on all of this before we move on to the next phase of our conversation.
Yes, thank you very much. I cannot agree less with the input or submissions of my colleagues on this program. The transition, so to speak, from parliamentary to presidential system of government is a factor. And oftentimes we still experience some kind of carryover, thinking that we're still in the parliamentary era as opposed to presidential system. That's a big factor. Then, of course, the other factors you can largely classify into intra-legislative factors and extra-legislative factors. Extra-legislative factors, well, the role of the party, the role of godfathers in the system, who influence what happens in the legislature, and even at times wanting to dictate what happens in the legislature, whether you consider the state or the federal level. And of course, you cannot rule out the role of the executive, especially where the executive is overbearing, particularly, the state level. You have, some of these things coming up to affect the stability of the legislature. And of course, the intra-legislative factors, the disposition of the presiding officer, whether the speaker or the Senate president or, whatever, or even the leadership as a whole. It's always important for the leadership as a whole to appreciate that first among equals. And of course, the sharing of positions within the legislature, either the leadership positions themselves or the chairmanship of committees, how much justice, how much balance, how much equity, how much fairness, have come into play. All these are very important. Of course, if the presiding officer is also high-handed, that will also cause a lot of instability within the legislative house. So by and large, these are the major factors. Of course, the issue of understanding of the provisions of the Constitution vis-a-vis the demands of the executive. These are also issues, and even the members themselves. How much do they buy into maintaining the integrity of that legislative house, as an institution? It's important. And the other factor, again, is the rapid turnover of legislators. Because of this factor of either the role of a godfather or that this turn-by-turn approach, where a legislator comes in before he even gets to understand the rudiments of the legislature, he is thrown out again, and then new set of people come in. And this is not good for the stability of the institution. As opposed to, say, America, where you have legislators being there for 30, 25, 40, even 50 years, because legislation is such that the more you stay there, and of course, serious-minded as you are, then the better for not just for the institution, for the entire country. So these are some of the factors that, readily come to mind as to the sources of instability in the legislature.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Mamora. We'll take a look at what needs to be done, taking a look at this instability as we have seen it happening over the years. But because our viewers who are interested in what is happening at the National Assembly, they have decided to tweet at us this morning. Let's have a feel of what the viewers are saying. I'll start off with that of Okaibo. He says, the crisis is politically motivated. This will never end except Nigerian politicians learn to play politics with ethics.
Now, Sonny Omakoji tweets, some of these crises are masterminded by their godfathers who are bent on dictating to them, that's to say to the lawmakers, how this country should be governed.
For Abdulaziz Abdulmajid, he said, we are living in a country with issues and issues without action plan to resolve it. Confused country, I think.
Now, Obed Otu Ipobong tweets, I think this problem is all about their personal issues. Now, this problem will only end when Nigeria practices real democracy.
And for Thoyo, he says the meaning recurring leadership crisis in National Assembly is simply a result of conflict of interest amongst members.
All right, those are some of the tweets that we are taking. In the meantime, we'll come back to your tweets in the course of the conversation to return to our guests in the studios here with us in the Abuja studios, Right Honorable Gali Naba, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, who was there from 1999 to 2003. In touching on the causative factors, yes, we've identified a number of factors, the hodgepodge of interest that came to coagulate into the parties that we had from 1998, actually, up to 1999, and up to the present, and some of the issues. But certainly, this is one of the concerns of some observers. Parties try to get their members in line. There's what is known as the caucus system, where issues of concern to the party in power are first of all thrashed out before you bring them into the open. But again, part of what we have seen is, I use this, with the greatest, I say this with the greatest respect. It's to use the normal lingo. You don't find area boys who are, hopping around on the floor, with no one to restrain them. You wonder, where the party is. What has happened to the caucus system? What has happened to the discipline mechanism of parties to say, look, focus on your manifesto, focus on your ideas, and then see how you take that to the legislative floor and your legislative business. Right Honorable Naba.
Well, I think this has to do with the manner in which the political parties have broken down. And because the parties are no longer in reckoning. Today, most members of political parties, including even members of the National Assembly, when you ask them the manifesto of their parties, they don't know. Because nobody campaigns on the basis of such manifestos any longer. And you find out that because there is no internal democracy today, the level of personalization in the political system has gone up so much that people are no longer loyal to their parties, but organizations within the parties. You find out that within a particular political party, certain leaders lead personal organizations, and they level them anyhow. And they give more preference to these personal associations rather than the political parties. And because the political parties have become just platforms for contesting elections. Nobody reckons with them. And due to these factors, inside the National Assembly itself, you find out that nobody speaks about party manifesto. Even caucus meetings of the members only meet to decide leadership, not to discuss programs or issues. When we started in 1999, and having been confronted with the situation that we met, what I mean is that we were put on the defensive. And because we were put on the defensive, issues that we were supposed to sit down and discuss, as Senator Mike Ajebo put it earlier, could not be done. So rather, we discussed more about how to protect the House from the onslaught of the President and his agents within the House. And it was so in the Senate. So that was how we managed the situation for 4 years. For 4 years, I've been under threat. Up to the time I left the House, I have been under threat of impeachment. And really, this affected the management of the House. And because we were also pioneers then, you know, managing the House, managing the committees, managing my office, managing the members, and then managing crisis. It was too much on the system. A time came when even businessmen started coming to tell me that because of the instability in the system, their foreign partners are afraid of bringing investment into the country. I now had to organize the leadership of the House, met with the President and told him that, look, if there is anything that we did to you that you consider bad, tell us and let us apologize. He sat us down, abused us, and before we saw him, I warned my colleagues that whatever he said, nobody should retort. Let him abuse us, let him say anything, and we'll thank him and apologize and leave, so that we will give the country a new lease of life. Only for the President to come out on television and inform the country that some boys came to him and apologized, and he said there was no need to apologize. So all of these kinds of things have, you know, convoluted to make the legislature what it is not supposed to be. And today, the political parties are no longer doing their job. All they're interested in is elections. When election time comes, they manage the parties in such a way that the party makes so much money for the National Working Committee and so on and so forth. So the whole political system is headed towards breaking down. And the organic nature of our political parties, which we used to know in the Second Republic particularly, and the First Republic, is no longer subsisting today. In the Second Republic, I was a member of a political party, and the feeling that we share with other members of our political parties used to be one of brotherhood. It was as if we came out from the same wombs. Today, it is different. The level of distrust, the level of enmity among the same party members. Today, as you can see, the PDP has been trying to organize itself, to relaunch itself. It's becoming impossible. And this is very, very dangerous in a situation, you know, when you have a situation where the elites cannot organize to lead their country, then it is very dangerous for that country. The sooner we realize this, the better. And this is affecting all sectors of the polity. The elites must be able to organize themselves to run their country, because we have accepted democracy as the method with which we recruit our leadership. We must nurture it. When the parties break down and they cannot recruit leadership, then how do we run the country? This is happening in the PDP, and even in the APC. There is this potential in the APC for this to happen. So two of the largest political parties have not enjoyed stability and are not enjoying stability, and it is the country as a whole that is suffering.
Right, Honorable, what would be your greatest concern now, at least? We're already in it. From 1999 till date, it's 16, 17 years, like we've pointed out. For those of you who started the Fourth Republic, there are great concerns, even as we see in the National Assembly today. Where do you think we should begin to redirect those areas of reconstruction?
Well, I think, first of all, it is necessary. It is necessary, whatever we must do to maintain or to ensure that internal democracy within our parties is established. We must do that. We must ensure that internal democracy, is given room to thrive. Because in the absence of election, you have removed the soul from democracy. And you have a situation today where our political parties have not been allowed to grow, such that today, if you were to see our political parties physically, you'll see them like dwarfs. And once that is allowed to happen, the economy will be dwarfed, the social system will be dwarfed, and no sector of the society can grow beyond the political parties we have. That is why in 16 years, Nigeria has not recorded any appreciable growth, whether economically or politically or socially. And this is going to continue as long as we don't allow our political parties to grow. You cannot deregulate your economy and regulate politics. We regulate politics because internal democracy has not been allowed to thrive in the political system. Therefore, there is a contradiction. Therefore, we must do whatever we can to make our political parties grow. One negative thing is that since elections are conducted, people contest elections on the basis of their ideas. And today, there is no competition. Ideas don't compete in the political parties. And you find out that the basis within which recruitment to leadership positions is made is through sycophancy. And since we recruit leadership by means of sycophancy, people no longer feel challenged to better themselves intellectually. And no society grows in whatever way without its intellect being at work. Therefore, we are gradually eliminating our intellect from the system and rewarding, sycophancy, rewarding things that will never further us in any means. So it is very, very important for us to focus on these internal democracies to ensure that there is competition within the system that provides, leadership for our country. That way, things will normalize and become better. Otherwise, we will continue
Right, Honorable Galina, but you couldn't have, stated it much more starkly. And of course, for the benefit of our viewers, you can see the wider implications of what we see. I mean, you read the stories every day. Oh, there's some allegation about budget padding. Somebody's going to, somebody's been reported, another person is being investigated. But our guest this morning indicating the wider implications of what is going on in terms of the crisis that we have, not just in the National Assembly now, but also in the political parties. I would like Dr. Kabir Mato, to lend his voice to this perspective. Right Honorable Gali Naba has indicated, and that's the point I would like to quote him, says, the elite must be able to organize themselves in order to be able to lead their country. And that level of organization will include political parties, what you do, and so on and so forth. Are we failing ourselves?
Well, I cannot agree, less than what Speaker Naba said. The truth of the matter is that one of the major crises that the Nigerian political system faces today, as I did say earlier, has to do with the nature of the proliferation and management of our political party system. The political party is what you call the umbilical cord of Western liberal democracy. Without it, things hardly work the right way. And of course, the workings of the political party itself determines the workability of the democratic system, as a larger political entity. What we have really is that the party has gradually denudated. The powers, the stronghold, the meaning and importance of the party, have severely been weakened within the current republic that we are in Nigeria. Now, let me give you this example. The Second Republic and in the First Republic that we like making references to, the political parties were strong, were supreme. They determined the direction and action of their members. Today, the political party is merely a wing of the state government house or the Aso Rock Villa, where the leaders of the political party are determined, where the activities of the political parties are in most cases, formed together. Now, as long as the party does not give directives to its members and it only plays the role of serving as a vehicle on whose pedestals people aspire to political positions, then we are in for the trouble and we are going to continue to face these very daunting tasks and challenges. The political party must retain some measure of supremacy over all elected officials under its banner. Let me tell you this. In 1979 to 1983, the president then, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, said every Monday they organized a meeting of party caucuses, the presiding officers of the two chambers of the National Assembly, under the chairmanship of the NPN then, Adisa Kiloi, at the State House, Ribad Road. And whenever the meeting was held, it wasn't President Shagari who was chairing that meeting. It was Akiloi, the chairman of the MPN, that chaired the meeting. And so that was why MPN did not control 50% of the Senate and the House of Representatives and had most of their bills sell through with little rancor. Now, in 1999, the same thing was suggested to President Obasanjo. The first meeting was organized and led Solomon Allah was to chair the meeting. And Baba said, over his dead body, somebody will come to Presidential Villa and chair a meeting when he was the president of the party. And that was the beginning of the coinage of what you have as the party leader today. Absolutely. You have a party chairman, you have a party leader. The party leader controls the funds and dictates what happens within the political party. What I'm saying in essence is that I am simply corroborating what Speaker Naaba said. If you don't have germane political parties, it is very difficult or rather impossible for you to run an effective civil democratic governance. And that's the problem we're facing in this country, whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not. If we want to do it, you see, much about democracy is attitude. Democracy is an empty vessel and what you put into it becomes the content. If you desire to do this, if you don't do the right thing that you are supposed to do and the other person does not do the right thing, it takes you a very long time to realize a very common objective. So I'm thinking that it is important for the Nigerian political class to understand the instrumentality and centrality of political parties within the entire gamut of the political process. And it is only when you do that, we surrender. As members of political parties, they have to surrender whatever sovereignty, whatever powers they have to the dictates of the leadership of their respective political parties. But what obtains today is that the political parties are merely appendages. And they sometimes receive instructions from the various government houses. And in this case, therefore, members of, and of course it increases, and you can see from 1999 to date, the volatility that you have in the two chambers of the National Assembly. Incidentally, between 1999 and 2006, in fact, MPM controlled at a point more than 75% of the entire membership of the two chambers, meaning that they had the capacity to either override or impeach, PDP. Yes. But because of this, because of the failure of the political party, in 2011, for God's sake, the party said this is our, candidate for the speaker. And the members of the party said no, and they went the other way. It happened also in 2015. The party said, this is our candidate for Senate President, this is our candidate for speaker. But members, we should begin to ask ourselves what is responsible for this. It is the inability of the political party to retain its pride of place within the entire gamut of the political enterprise. Right. And if we don't do that, we're going to continue to sink. What's happening in the APC in the House of Representatives today? A member of the APC who stood on the floor of Senate, chanted verses from the Holy Quran, nominated a candidate for the speakership against the will of his party, became the speaker eventually. One budget, 1 year, crisis erupted, and the same person is bringing down the roof. The same political party is not a member of the PDP, for God's sake. He won elections under the banner of the APC, the same platform that the speaker, the deputy speaker, and the majority whip that he is accusing. So I am saying that the APC could not wade into the problem as at when due, until when it became a global affair. And Nigerians are so hungry, are so thirsty by the fact that they have been tragically emasculated by the successive political leadership. And when they simply accuse you that you have stolen money, now nobody gives you any chance to defend yourself. And it's a whole crisis. So it tells you that our political party system is not working. If we want to do this, unless, of course, if we choose to evolve another system of democracy, which even the communists do not do, to say we are going to do democracy on no party basis.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kabir Mato. Of course, our guest in the Lagos studio is also itching to actually lend voice to this last part of the conversation. Let's get your perspective on what we should be doing differently. Yes, both Right Honorable Galina has spoken, as well as Dr. Mato, on what needs to be done. Senator Ajegbo.
I believe that we may need to tweak the constitution a bit in order to empower the political parties. One area is leadership of the National Assembly. The party in majority should provide the leadership of the National Assembly. Just this might have to be a mixture of what we see in the parliamentary system and the presidential system, in the sense that in the UK, the leader of a political party, if they're a majority in the House, becomes the prime minister. So we can evolve such a system, because for goodness sake, this is 17 years we have not grown. Like Right Honorable Naba said, we are stunted. This is a stunted growth. So we have to move forward. Therefore, we need to amend that section of the Constitution which says you elect your leadership by simple majority, by saying a leader provided by the party majority should be adopted as the Senate President and the House Speaker. That is point one. Two, I think our present president has started doing something in one angle. I think he needs to go a bit for controlling of funds in the political arena. There is so much money moving into politics that is no longer politics of ideas, as Galen Abba said, is now politics of money. Please, we need to stop these so-called security funds moving into the political arena. I don't know what the Federal Land Revenue and the Starting Land Revenues are doing, People spend so much money without accounting how they got the money. They don't pay tax. We need to control money, movement of money into the political arena. This is one place to start. So if the parties provide the leadership in the institutions, people will start respecting political parties. People will now start pushing the manifestos of political parties. Today we will know whether the manifesto of APC is okay or not, then we might have to move to PDP. But as long as it's money politics, godfatherism, we are not growing. And there's so much money in the system. This, to my mind, can curtail influencing parties instead of based on ideas, is now based on money. I don't know what...
Well, Senator Ajegbo, thank you for your comment. We're coming right now to your brother Senator Mamora. Senator Mamora, in taking up some of the challenges in the National Assembly or in the polity in general, you talked about extra legislative factors, one of which is the Godfather syndrome. And the former speaker has also indicated, the issues, the philosophical challenges. Ideas don't matter anymore. Sycophancy is the order of the day. The other guests have also spoken about that. But to say, the recruitment process, how you get persons elected, how you get persons nominated, how can we begin to overcome those challenges identified by the guests, including yourself, with particular regard to godfatherism and the plentiful application of money?
Well, thank you very much. I think, again, I want to thank my colleagues for their submissions. What has happened essentially is what I call political party systemic failure. And of course, for as long as the parties remain vehicles for political ascendancy, then we must begin to look at how the parties can be re-engineered to serve the purpose for which those parties have been formed, which is, leadership recruitment, which should be based on competence, merit, ability, capacity, and hard work, and not, sycophancy or, use of money or, godfatherism and all that. Because if we continue to do that, then the system will not grow. And again, I also agree that for me, it's a syndrome, which in medical parlance we call failure to thrive. The country has undergone that kind of, or is in that kind of syndrome, failure to thrive. We have not thrived, as much as we should do, because the parties, essentially, they have become parastatals, which should not be. Political parties should not be parastatals. They should be strong enough as to really dictate the course of events in terms of the robustness of the parties, and of course, in terms of dictating or charting a course, a vision for the party itself in terms of ideology. We are still largely not, or the parties are largely not ideologically driven. It's just that's where you have people that have moved within 3 parties under 24 hours. So you cannot say that people who do that have a vision, they have a commitment to any ideology. We need to look at this. Also, we need to look at how we build our institutions, whether particularly the legislature, because that is the focus. We need to build our institutions. One of the ways of building institutions is to allow continuity, and not just this issue of rapid turnover, which does not do the system any good. And of course, we must give effect to the concept of party supremacy. If party supremacy cannot work if there is indiscipline in the party as a whole. So we need to enhance discipline within the parties so that the concept of party supremacy can be given effect. These are some of the things. And of course, the issue of synergy. We need to build synergy between the party and the legislature, between the party and the executive, between the executive and the legislature. Synergy at all levels, so that we can then have what I call shared vision for the good of the country.
All right, Senator Mamora, thank you very much for your comments. Let's quickly now take the reactions of viewers to the contributions of the guests that we've had. So, Blessing.
Yes, change begins with you, says National Assembly members also disregard their political party interests because of pecuniary interests, which makes governance difficult for execution.
Abubakar Omar tweets, gone are the days when politics was based on ideology, but it's sad. Now it's who gets out.
Kolo Ibrahim says simply political ego tripping by members of both chambers and its promotion by the executive has been the cause of the crisis.
Mike Ayakwa tweets, we need a very robust and strong leadership in the National Assembly for exertion of its independence.
Ali Kopama, the best solution to this crisis is reverting back to unicameral legislature for quick and swift action.
Now, Thayo tweets, I totally disagree with Senator Mamora's take on elongated tenure for members to acquaint themselves with the system.
And for Amin Mohammed, it says the problem with the political parties these days is that the politicians are there to make money. They don't have any political goal.
Well, those are some of the tweets that we'll have opportunity of taking. But you know, what Senator Mamora was talking about wasn't tenure allegation, but to say that look, have prolonged stay, as it were, so that you get used to the system and you get more discipline, and you know the rules and follow the procedures. Well, that's the much that time will permit us to take. We'd like to go back to Lagos to thank our distinguished guest, distinguished Senator Mike Ajegbo. Thank you very much for being part of our discussion this morning. And also distinguished Senator Olorunimbe Mamora, former Speaker as well of the Lagos House of Assembly. We'd like to thank you always for finding time to be part of our program. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. All right, now we come back to Abuja studios, and we'd like to thank Dr. Ibrahim Mato of Department of Political Science, University of Abuja. Your contributions we really appreciate. The former Speaker of the House, we're going to get some closing thoughts. We understand we have just less than a minute before we sign off and then move on to our complementary segments. Very briefly.
Well, my closing thoughts is that let me say something that really disturbs my mind, and I hope viewers will understand what I'm going to say. You see, one of the disturbing phenomena in this polity is this idea of political exclusion. You know, in a regime of political exclusion, leaders, particularly presidents and governors, lead this country into instability. Things that were settled have become no longer settled. When we were about to start in 1999, the person who was elected to become the president said that anybody who contributed towards his campaign had lost his investment, and that he was not going to patronize them. It is false, Kingsley, to accept that there is no patronage in political systems. And when we started having problems with the president, it was this category of people who labored, contributed towards the campaign of the president, and who the president had the audacity to tell that they lost their investments, who began to call us, particularly myself, to express solidarity with what was going on, to express solidarity with us in the confrontation between the House of Representatives and the president. And eventually, this led to the crack in the PDP. Members of the PDP floated many political parties, the NDP, the UMPP, and many other parties had members of PDP who opted out of PDP to form. That was how parties proliferated. Because, you see, in the Second Republic, MPN, PRP, and all the other parties were stakeholder parties. That was why relative stability was enjoyed.
So we need to take
From 1999 to date, because of exclusion, this country has been, bedeviled with instability. Therefore, I want to urge leaders, particularly presidents and governors, to take care of their party members. Even today, there has been cries from the ruling party that members who helped the party come to power have not been taken care of. This is very, very important for the stability of the system.
Right, Honorable Galin Uman Abba, former Speaker, House of Representatives, would like to thank you very much for your insights and for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very much.
And so I guess also the rest of you will say thank you very much. This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break right now to bring some messages, and it will be time to call it a day on the program today.
Hi, I'm Corey David. Maven. Okay, guess what? Police force is more efficient and more proactive than ever. All we need to do is trust the police and partner with the police. I don't get that, lads. God, you win. The police is here to protect and serve you. All they need is your cooperation. There be one for my hand, but God, you win. So I'm calling on all communities to cooperate with the police to ensure fast response in case of any emergency. Police na your friend, though. If you no call police, who you want call? I don't change my name to God you win.
This message is from the Nigeria Police Force.
You get 3 kinds of moms. The paranoid mom, the cautious mom, and the Dettol mom. She only trusts Dettol antiseptic liquid to protect her family from up to 100 illness-causing germs, and it's recommended for cuts and scrapes, which is why you can worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom.
This is a sheer exhibition of your primitive, atavistic tendency.
Any student who does not donate to my ministry will not be blessed by the ministry.
A phenomenon that defies the norm. A comedy and social satire that touches all, bears all, and shakes you up like never before.
Yeah, like, after now you go say na me they talk all is about the bad thing where they have for this world.
Glow presents Professor John Bull, the biggest thing on your TV this season. Starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Yomi Fash Lanso, Funky Malam, Ime Bishop, Bimbo Akintola, Oguz Baba, Bidemi Kosoko, Junior Pope MC for God, Stephen Odingwe, and a host of other mega stars.
During April 12th, there is a Yura.
Intellectual pre-para.
Professor John Bull, every Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA International, NTA Network, and Star Times.
Over and out.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
We intend to radically change Newman Street. My company has a track record of converting slums into new cities. Many years of experience has taught us to fish out allies within the communities we want to transform.
Don't listen to your husband. Listen to me. Give me a boy. And the two of you may never even have to work again.
that guy. How are you? What's your name? Akpos. America. Oh, Akpos America. One. Love it too. Wonderful wonder. Wonderful wonder.
Let's take a quick look now at the weather prospects for the rest of today.
Thank you for joining us on the weather segment. It appears that rains from an overnight weather systems may likely linger into the early hours of the morning over some parts of the central states. Places like Niger, Abuja, and some parts of Jalingo axis may witness this overnight into early morning rainfalls, while elsewhere within the country are expected to be in cloudy morning. And later on in the day, we expect high chances of localized thunderstorms to affect the north and some parts of the central states. Places like Gombe, Bauchi, Abuja, and some parts of Kano and Kaduna axis may witness thunderstorms in the afternoon and late evening hours, while the southern half of the country will experience rains. I am Susan Opara. Stand by for the temperature details.
Thank you very much, Susan Opara. And this is where we end the program. Good morning, Nigeria, for today. We appreciate your company. Let's do it again tomorrow. My name is Blessing Abu.
And I'm Kingsley Osadula, and I join Blessing in thanking you for starting your day with us. As always, 7 o'clock tomorrow, the program returns, and that will be in the morning. Do have a nice day.